first one that we're going to look at is Henry Jenkins. And he is an audience theorist, and his ideas are linked into Hall's encoding and reception theory. And so if you've got a strong understanding of Stuart Hall's theories, then you're probably going to understand more complex audience theories like Jenkins and Shirky. So if you're not sure on Hall, quickly go back to your notes from our lessons on reception theory at the start of the year and have a quick read through. So once you're happy with audience readings like preferred, negotiated, opposition and aberrant, you can move on to the key concepts of Jenkins, and especially his ideas on the importance of fans. Audiences read media texts, but they don't always necessarily agree with the media producers on all aspects of it. But rather than just a preferred or negotiated reading of the text, they can actually become involved in the text. And what they do is they try to do something about that displeasure. So Jenkins boils down to three concepts. Concept 1 is fan-based appropriations. Concept 2 is audience and producer convergence. And concept 3 is participatory culture. What are they? In a nutshell, let's go through each one. Concept 1 is fan-based appropriations. Jenkins calls this textual poaching. So I like to think of this like in the old days when people who were called poachers, they'd essentially sneak onto grazing land and they'd illegally hunt or trap and take deer, for example. And they would make a quick profit off the hard work of other people. Jenkins suggests that although fans are guilty of taking an existing media product, that they are, in a very postmodern way, just using that as inspiration from the media to make new media products. So these fans are, depending on your point of view, either celebrating the original, as imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, or they are stealing the ideas from the most creative or well-known in order to produce their own content, and by that process, devaluing the original. Which leads straight into concept 2, audience and producer convergence. Now, what is significant is that these fans are not pretending that they came up with the original ideas. They do credit their inspiration, and they use this form of fan fiction or reinvention to demonstrate their love for and support of the original, to the point where they overlap and the edges all kind of blur. So we can now watch fan reaction videos to new film trailers. So that idea of fans reacting is big. They're singing the latest songs. And we've even got fan fiction stories like the thousands of Harry Potter stories all over the internet. So that's pretty straightforward and leads us into the idea of concept 3, which is participatory culture. The reason it's significant is that these fans, they're buying into the product, but they're also hoping to cash in on the fame and the familiarity of that product. It's why wannabe YouTube gamers are always playing the latest big game, from Fortnite to Apex Legends and Call of Duty Warzone. Ninja really isn't brand loyal, is he? What they're doing is they're looking to gain their own form of celebrity status on the back of the original media texts, and this has been made easier for them by the proliferation and convergence of new technology. Now, proliferation just means lots of, and convergence means coming together. So essentially, with a single mobile phone, you can shoot, edit and upload your own video to YouTube, making the process easier and, some might say, also making the temptation much greater. Whatever your point of view is on this, it is important to remember that Jenkins is very much an optimist. He sees this convergence and symbiosis as a force for good, and he embraces this digital revolution. So in your reading, you'll see this as a reference to the cyber utopia that's emerging in participatory culture, and that it isn't motivated to make money like the big traditional media producers. Now, I'll leave it to you to draw your own conclusions on whether you think he's right that this is an altruistic model, or if you think that textual poaching is exactly that, trying to profit off the hard work of other people. So what about Clay Shirky? Well, he's also an audience theorist, but he says that there is no such thing as a passive audience anymore, if there ever was, and that audiences are now participants. And this has been made easier for us due to the development of digital technology. But technology has also led us to expect to be able to interact with our media products. This has created a feedback loop with producers where audience opinions matter and both can and do influence the production of media products. This democratization of the process has given audiences much more power and influence. But it's also led to audiences rejecting traditional media forms. Younger audiences especially, the so-called digital natives, are instead creating and participating in their own media products, from fan reaction videos to a simple tweet. This mass amateurization is a fundamental shift in the media landscape. So your producer-consumer or prosumer can now produce a non-professional media content product and gain just as much recognition, influence, and even profit as a traditional media producer. So here, the idea of filtering is really important. The filter being the process of sort of fine-tuning your product to appeal to a specific audience. Now, the traditional mode of professional media producers is to come up with ideas, making, testing, adjusting, and then releasing. That's no longer the norm. This self-filtering to create a lasting and marketable product before release is no longer seen as necessary. There are far, far more prosumers following a very different model of this throwaway media that's designed to be consumed only once. So that's your YouTube film reviewer, your Twitch game streamer. It's the producer who publishes and then filters. And what's interesting is that filter is now the consumers themselves through platforms like Reddit. Shirky talks about this as the end of audience, as we are all now prosumers. But whether you agree or disagree with that claim, you can't deny the fact that audiences do now expect to have some sort of platform to access the producers to have their opinions heard, and we certainly can't go back to that traditional model of media production. Now, this is something that Shirky thinks the big conglomerates want. Do you think he's right? Do you think that is what they want, to go back to that traditional model? Or is this whole prosumer revolution actually a liberation from being forced hegemonic ideologies by big conglomerates? Or is it a terrible spiral into a world of fake news and mediocre and shallow media that we simply graze on and pass comment on rather than anticipating and relishing? Now, to be fair to Shirky, he does suggest that the poor quality and poorly informed media saturation is a result of the failure of our filter systems, not the ability of prosumers to create quality and engaging content. So those nuggets of gold are somehow being lost in a wall of noise. So hopefully that gives you a much clearer idea of what we're trying to achieve this week. I've just run through what the theories are all about. At the beginning of the video, I've talked to you about how I want you to respond to the tasks, and I'm hopefully a lot clearer on how long I want you to spend on them. Again, get in touch if you've got any questions, problems, queries. I look forward to seeing your responses to this week's tasks. Stay safe, and I'll speak to you soon.